Thank you for tuning in to Module 7 in the 2025 Municipal Affairs Election Training Program. This module will focus on post-vote procedures. As a disclaimer, this video is intended as an introduction and overview of some of the things you need to know as a returning officer. This presentation does not provide a comprehensive review of the legislation and is not legal advice. If you have questions about how the legislation applies to specific facts, make sure to get advice from your legal counsel. If you watched our previous presentations, you know that our 2025 training will be delivered in pre-recorded videos and posted to the Municipal Affairs website throughout the election year. If you haven't watched these presentations, please take some time to watch them. In Module 7, we'll be talking about post-vote procedures. Module 8 will be made available later this spring. In addition, the elections database videos provided by our information services team are up on our election resources page, along with specialized returning officer training videos for summer villages. In this session, we'll provide an overview of vote counting procedures before getting into the sections of the LAEA that deal with the declaration of election results, recounts, including judicial recounts, and how to handle election materials, including ballot boxes. So starting with counting at the close of voting stations. Promptly at 8 p.m. on election day, the returning officer or presiding deputy must declare the voting station closed. Once everybody has left, deputy returning officers can get their envelopes ready and ensure they have all the forms required to conduct the vote count. Candidates, their official agents, or their scrutineers are permitted to remain in the voting station to observe the count process, and you are not required to provide any tally sheets or forms to them. Also, a deputy must not permit more than one member of a candidate's team to be present in the voting station at a time. In the presence of at least one additional election officer, the presiding deputy returning officer will ensure that each ballot box is opened and that the votes are counted. Also check to see if your municipality has passed a bylaw pursuant to Section 85.1, which allows for the designation of a central counting center to count the special ballot box, advance vote ballot box, and institutional vote ballot box. Please remember that this section does not permit a centralized counting center for all ballots, just the special advance vote and institutional vote ballot boxes. Moving on to void ballots pursuant to Section 86. A deputy returning officer must examine the ballots and reject any ballot that does not have the initials of an election officer, on which more votes are cast than an elector is entitled to vote for, on which anything is written or marked by which an elector can be identified, that has been torn, defaced, or otherwise dealt with by an elector so that the elector can be identified, that is not marked by an X, or on which no vote has been cast by an elector. Rejected ballots must not be counted and must have the word rejected written on the back. If a candidate or a member of their team objects to the rejected ballot, the deputy must write "rejection objected to" on the back of the ballot, and the deputy must initial it. If a ballot has been incorrectly marked, but clearly indicates which candidate the elector has voted for, the deputy may count the ballot. If a candidate or a member of their team has objected to a ballot, the deputy shall make a note of the objection using Form 18. Every objection must be numbered, and a corresponding number must be placed on the back of the ballot and initialed by the deputy. And remember, electors cannot be objected to anymore, only ballots. Moving on to the ballot account using Form 19. The deputy returning officer must count the ballots marked for each candidate and prepare the ballot accounting form. At the completion of the count, 2 deputies must sign the ballot account. The account may also be signed by the candidates or the members of their team who observe the count process. Under Section 90, Presiding Deputy's certification and statement on completion of ballot account using Form 15, Every presiding deputy at the close of the voting station shall certify in words in the prescribed form the number of persons who registered to vote at the voting station at which the deputy was designated to preside. At the completion of the count, the ballots and other election materials must be separated into the appropriate packets. Each ballot packet must be sealed and clearly marked on the outside, including the date of the election, the name of the deputy, and the voting subdivision name or number. The packets, elector register, special ballot certificate envelopes, along with the copies of elector's identification, and all statements made on voting day are sealed inside the ballot box once the count is complete. Pursuant to Section 94, the sealed ballot box and ballot account must be delivered to the returning officer as soon as possible, and the presiding deputy shall obtain a receipt of delivery. Also note that Section 91.1 requires the presiding deputy to make a copy of the elector register and provide the copies to the relevant municipality. This is so the municipality can revise the permanent electors register. These copies must be destroyed as soon as reasonably practicable. The Local Authorities Election Act does not specify a process or provide methods for making these copies, but clearly this needs to be done before the registers are sealed in the ballot box. Returning officers should consult with their election teams to establish a process for this and consider getting legal advice if necessary. So moving on to results. The candidates receiving the highest number of votes are declared elected. If your election results in a tie vote, follow the process in Section 99 for breaking the tie, essentially writing all the candidates' names on identical pieces of paper, which are uniformly folded, and drawing one name from a hat. The returning officer may publish unofficial results as the results are received from the voting station. The returning officer shall, at 12 noon on the fourth day after election day, at the office of the local jurisdiction for which an election was held, announce or post a statement of the results, including a declaration that the candidate receiving the highest number of votes for each office to be filled is elected. The returning officer must also report the number of votes for each candidate to the Secretary and to Municipal Affairs through the elections database.
If a recount is necessary, you will need to carefully review sections 98, 98.1, and 98.2 prior to beginning. Please be aware that these provisions were amended as of May 15, 2025. So make sure you review these sections before Election Day and again before conducting a recount. There are two kinds of recounts. The first can be initiated by the returning officer if a candidate, official agent, or scrutineer shows grounds that the returning officer considers reasonable for alleging that the record of the result of the count is inaccurate. The returning officer considers that the number of valid ballots objected to or rejected ballots other than those on which no vote was cast was sufficient to affect the result of the election. Or the returning officer is of the opinion that there may have been an administrative or technical error that may have caused an error in the count of votes. An application for this kind of recount must be made within 44 hours of the close of voting stations. And if a recount under Section 98 proceeds, it must be completed before the time set for the statement of results under Section 97, Sub 2. The second kind of recount shall be conducted by the returning officer if they receive an application from the candidate who is the runner-up or their official agent, when the result is within 0.5% of the ballots received by the candidate with the highest number of votes. Applications for this kind of recount must be made within 72 hours after the statement of results is announced or posted, and if an application is made under Section 98.1, the returning officer must complete the recount no later than 12 noon on the fifth day after the day of the statement of results is posted under Section 97 Sub 2. The timelines and processes for recounts and applications for recounts are strict. If you need to conduct a recount, make sure to review the provisions of the LAEA thoroughly and get legal advice if you need it. For judicial recounts, at any time within 19 days after the close of voting stations, an elector may apply to the court for a recount. The elector must file an affidavit alleging reasonable grounds for believing the ballots were improperly counted and deposit $300 as security for costs and expenses.
Lastly, let's move on to election materials. All election materials should be stored in a secure location. The secretary, that is the CAO, keeps the ballot boxes with their seals unbroken for a period of at least 6 weeks from Election Day. The contents of the boxes must be destroyed in the presence of 2 witnesses no later than 12 weeks after Election Day, unless otherwise ordered by a judge. The witnesses must make an affidavit confirming they saw the contents of the ballot boxes destroyed. No person may inspect the contents of a ballot box in the custody of the secretary, except on order of a judge. And that concludes Module 7. Please remember to review our additional election resources online and visit the Forms page for PDF versions of election forms. If you have questions about school board elections, please contact Alberta Education. Updated versions of the MGA and LAEA can be accessed or ordered through the King's printer, and questions about the elections database can be sent to our information services team.